Recording in progress.
Welcome to the Louisville, Colorado City Council meeting of Monday, November 6, 2023. May we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Maloney,
Here.
Councilmember Lay, Councilmember Dickinson,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fahey,
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Here.
Councilmember Hefner,
Here.
Councilmember Kern.
Here.
Thank you. Would you all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up is the approval of the agenda. I want to take this opportunity to make an announcement. Council has directed staff regarding the VIA API reconfiguration to pause that project and to ask that the, please show respect for whoever's talking. I would appreciate that. And ask staff to reconfigure the contract so that the striping matches the current striping, and this topic will be taken up at a later date. With that, do we have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. So next up is public comments on items not on the agenda. This is a chance for anyone to speak on any item not on the agenda or any item on the consent agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Please tell us your name and if you're a Louisville resident. And I have some sign-up cards. First is George Colbert. Yes.
Oh, all right. Good evening. I'm George Colbert, or Colbert. I live in Ward 2, just off of Pine, next to Via Appia. With that recent announcement there, I'll make this much more brief. I did have a couple of meet and greets this weekend and knocked on hundreds of doors. The overall sentiment that I got from residents in Ward 2 and other wards was to ask for a pause to the Via Appia restriping. So since you've already made that announcement, I'll just say I believe this pause will allow us to gather more input from the community, consider alternative actions or options, and ensure that decision-making processes are transparent and inclusive. And by doing so, we can move forward in a way that takes into account the diverse needs of our residents and balance the safety of all road users with the impact on those who live and work in the area. Thank you for your consideration, time, and your announcement.
Thank you. Next up, we have Paul Ewing. Pass? Okay. Thank you. Next up is Helen Mosak, sitting in the front row.
Hi. My name is Helen Moshak. I'm a Louisville resident and a little tired from waving signs for ballot measure 2C. But I wanted to thank you, dear council members, for your initial work over the past years to study and begin discussions about whether to join with other jurisdictions in Boulder County to establish a common minimum wage for our neighboring communities. It was great to hear on November 2nd that Boulder County followed up on their work and plan to raise the minimum wage for unincorporated Boulder County from the state minimum of $13.65 to a county minimum of $15.69. I fully support our county plan to institute steady increases annually to reach $25 an hour in 2030. I'm disappointed that we and our city neighbors did not join Boulder County, so we still have work to do. Denver and Edgewater are the first and only other communities so far who have set their minimum wage under Colorado law. The new 2023 local minimum wage report from the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment reports that since the minimum wage, the Denver community has experienced lower unemployment rates, increases in average weekly earnings, increases in sales tax revenue for food and drink places and businesses across the board, better economic measures than neighboring and comparable cities in Colorado. I urge council in Louisville to lead the charge with neighboring communities to set a minimum wage of at least $15 for 2025 and to commit to a plan to reach $25 by 2030 so that low-wage workers are paid fairly for their work. Workers can gain a footing to live in the communities where they work. Louisville employers remain competitive with Denver and Boulder County employers. We start to bridge the gaps that create housing and food instability so that Louisville lives up to our community potential and reputation as a compassionate and inclusive city, and that we start to deliver on our community vision and campaign promises to build a comprehensive network that supports affordable and attainable housing. Please set an agenda item for next month to discuss next steps and let your community know what we can do to get involved to set a minimum wage for our essential and service workers, increase our business community competitiveness, and make Louisville minimum wage a reality. Thank you. Also, I'm looking forward to learning more about the schedule for special budget sessions after we know the outcome of tomorrow's ballot measure election, so we can work together to revise the 2024 budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Lewis, Delaware.
I'm going to just speak a little bit about Via Appia in regards to the considerations that you may need to go through. I appreciate putting it on pause for the time being, but there are still other issues associated with that street, road, whatever you want to call it. And that is there's a huge amount of traffic on it that does move very quickly. And I used to live above Via Appia over by the church, over by where Paul Ewing lives. And we would see police officers parked over by that church there to be able to basically catch people. I don't live over there any longer. I live over in the Enclave. But nonetheless, I think there needs to be further speed enforcement in that area, whether it's police officers, whether it's speed cameras or something, because it's just too fast. It's difficult to be able to get across the street at times, especially in the evenings when a lot of people are racing to try to get home. The other thing I think we are probably now at that point in time is to have stoplights along Via Appia. I know it's been a contentious issue along the way, but it has become very difficult to be able to cross at West Pine Street, at Tyler, at Lafayette. It just makes it very untenable for some people to be able to make a left turn there. And so I just think we're waiting for an accident to happen there. And by the way, I'm an avid bicyclist. I'd like to see that the road be a little slower. I think the bike lane is wide enough as it is right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is David Blankenship.
Hi, my name is David Blankenship, and I'm a Louisville resident. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to speak tonight, and I wish all of you who are running for election good luck tomorrow. I have emailed council a couple times in the past week and realized today that there is a common thread in these topics that I would like to focus on in my time this evening. So there is a consent agenda topic tonight related to board and commission rules of procedure. And there's also this other topic of Via Appia, which I will try to streamline what I'm going to say about that. But I did realize that today that my dissatisfaction with where both of these topics sit revolves around the fact that many agree that communication among council, the boards, and the public is subpar, yet more could be done to address this. So first on the topic of boards. I have been the chair of the Open Space Advisory Board for 2 years and have served on the board for a total of 6 years. However, keep in mind that I'm speaking all of this as a member of the public tonight. We have had internal discussions and spoken to city staff and individual council members about frustrations we have had in finding the best ways to communicate our ideas to council. With the removal of city council liaisons 4 years ago, we have felt more in the dark, and the hope was that the new rules of procedure presented tonight would address this concern. Unfortunately, the proposal before you this evening doesn't speak to any direct communication allowed from the boards to council or vice versa. The staff liaison is required in these documents to be the conduit for all communication both directions, which includes the writing of memos. And I think that this isn't desirable in terms of building trust and also adds to what is already a sizable workload for the staff liaisons with their normal city work. Now, regarding the restriping projects, suffice it to say that I'm pleased to hear what was decided tonight, but I was actually going to voice consistency in the opposition that I had earlier this year in March about the potential paving of the Coal Creek Trail. The common thread there is that the transportation master plan, although being followed in general spirit, was being deviated from in crucial ways. And I just think that we need to make sure that if we're going to cause any deviation from these governing documents to take place, we need to have sufficient public review process. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chamber? Josh Cooperman?
Thanks very much. Josh Cooperman. I live in Louisville. I would like to build on some of the previous speakers' comments regarding the agenda item on boards and commissions. I serve on the Sustainability Advisory Board, but I'm just speaking as a private resident. There are really three points that I'd like to bring up. The first is not particularly crucial, but I would like to raise it anyway. Under heading 3 in the proposed board and commission procedures, it talks about how the board meeting or commission meeting might proceed, and it kind of formalizes that. I would just like to say, our meetings are more conversational, much more so than a city council meeting. We don't sit at the dais, we just sit around a table. And so I would prefer if the rules didn't say that, the chair should recognize each time someone in the board wants to make a comment. I would rather have that be much more conversational. Okay. The second thing I would like to bring up is, I think regarding, which one is first? The staff liaison, which was also mentioned previously. This is under heading 8. And it says that the staff liaison will act as the conduit of information from the board to the city council and from the city council to the board. I strongly disagree with that provision. I don't think it should be the staff liaison who is acting in that way. I think the liaison should be the liaison between staff and the board, but if the board would like to communicate with council, I think the board should communicate directly with council and vice versa. And then the other point I would like to mention is about, it's under heading 9, and it talks about the staff liaison or the city's communications division creating all memos, marketing, and outreach materials for the board. That is not how we work at the moment. Board members create memos. The staff might format them for us, but we are the ones who write them, and I think that is what it should be. Besides the fact that that would increase work for the staff liaison, which I don't think we need to increase their work anymore, I think it is the responsibility of those board members to write what they want to write. And so I would really like to see a change in that place as well. And then finally, as a board member, I did not see these proposed rules or regulations whatsoever until I saw the packet a few days ago. It would have been nice if they were shared. I don't know if they were shared among chairs or not. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public in the chambers? Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Julianne Leckie, and I am appreciative of the pause of the changes to Via Appia because that is where I live. And I'm up here speaking not necessarily because I want to, but because I feel like I have to on behalf of our neighborhood, who have all been very vocal since finding out about these changes. I live right off of Tyler in the Saddleback neighborhood. I probably have talked to at least 25 neighbors who are all in a string text who couldn't be here tonight because, like me, have children who are at home. And I would rather be here tonight because the summary is I don't see what the problem is being a resident who lives there. My children bike across Via Appia. I bike them to school across Via Appia. I walk on Via Appia nearly every day. And so I appreciate that there's going to be a discussion before we spend city money that I think could be used to better serve the community. And if there are problems, minus the occasional speeding, which of course no one wants, but will happen regardless of what we do. People will speed. If there are problems, I would like to know what they are. I just have not heard of, witnessed any issues in that part of the community. And I'm not a former resident of the neighborhood. I am a current resident. I look at Tyler and Via Appia from my kitchen every single day. So thank you for allowing me to speak today and allowing me to speak of all the neighborhood residents on Arrowhead and in the Saddleback residents who I've spoken with who all agree on this matter. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
So I'm Brent Carter, and I'm a Louisville resident living on the north side of Via Appia in the Saddleback area. And I was disappointed to hear about the pausing of the Via Appia restriping. I thought it was a great innovative approach to solving a real problem, which is a road that is way too wide, and a good short-term solution to really addressing some of the speeding issues, and in general, making the city more walkable and livable. So just note that there are other voices as well that are very much in support of this initiative, and wanted to share mine tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to make comments? Seeing none, that'll end public comment. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone have any changes to the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So we'll move on to council informational comments on pertinent items not on the agenda. I just want to mention something, one of the public comments about minimum wage. Just so you know, it is on the council 2024 work plan. I believe it's in the medium category, if I'm correct on that, but it is on the work plan for 2024. So a discussion, a potential decision will happen next year, and whatever decision would go into effect January 1st of 2025. Any other, yes, Councilor Hefner.
I'm sure many of us in the room are aware that this is your last meeting, Mr. Mayor, not only as mayor, but since joining council in 2015. And a few of us wanted to present a small token of recognition of your years of service to the city as a council person and as mayor. If you could pass this over. And I'll be brief, as you always are. But just really wanted to recognize your outstanding leadership and your commitment to the community, to public service. For me, I think you really embody what it means to lead by example. And whoever follows in your footsteps is going to have big shoes to fill.
Well, thank you very much. This is a surprise. Did you want to talk too?
Yeah. I joined council in 2019 with Dennis firmly in place, and it's really wonderful as a new council person to have the expertise and the lived experience of so many of the complexities of what we deal with. And you were always such a fantastic mentor for me and a calm presence on council and in board meetings and different moments, and always available to have a conversation. And you know, when we had to decide who to appoint as the sort of interim mayor in this last year, I loved your response to the nomination, basically, which is, I am willing to serve for a year in that capacity. I'm happy to do that for my community. And it just goes to your modesty and your the fact that you are here to serve your community. And I'm excited for you to maybe a little farther into retirement, a little more time with your grandchildren. And you have done a great service for your community over many, many years, certainly before I joined in 2019. Just thank you so much for your example and the amazing work you've done over the years on council. So thank you.
Well, this is embarrassing. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Councilor Lay. Thank you. Okay, let's put this away. Thank you very much. I really wasn't prepared to say anything. I am going to open the next meeting, just so you know. But, yes, I get the gavel to open the meeting. But, you know, it's certainly been an honor. I decided days before the election, or the signing up for the election, and, you know, ran a campaign, and I've been humbled and honored to serve on council, and thank you for your comments. You know, being selected amongst the group to serve as the mayor for 2023 has been an honor, and I've been trying to run through the finish line as best I know how, so thank you. All right, anything other than that for council informational comments? All right, move on to the city manager's report.
I can't really top that, but I would say it's been an honor working with you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for all you've done.
Thank you. Next up is regular business. So we have two items that we'll deal with at the same time. 741 Lincoln Avenue Landmarking and Preservation Grant. First is resolution number 68, series 2023, a resolution approving a landmark designation for historical residential property located at 741 Lincoln Avenue, the Oslander House. Resolution number 69, series 2023, a resolution approving preservation and restoration for the Oslander House at 741 Lincoln Avenue. And I open the public hearing, and I believe staff has a lengthy presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Rob Zuccaro, Community Development Director for the city. I am trying to make a presentation very briefly, but I think it looks like we're having some technical difficulties here. Let me see if I can do something here. Oh, there we go. I just had to click out of that. So, yeah. So I just want to let you know that our senior planner, historic preservation planner, Amelia Hogstead Brackett, did all the work on this. Fortunately, she's on vacation. Unfortunately, she's not here to present. So I'm filling in for her. But this is a proposal for a landmark at 741 Lincoln Avenue. This is on the southwest corner of Lincoln and Spruce. It's a request for a landmark and a preservation and restoration grant. So this is a really unique house. There are very few brick homes in the city that remain, and this is one of the few. It has Queen Anne ornamentation, a lot of brickwork, which is really unique. So this is a great property for potential landmarking. It also has a really unique social history. It was the original owners who lived there owned the Louisville Bakery, which was one of the original bakeries on Main Street. I love this little ad. It says, our lemon pies are fine. Try one and you will be pleased, 10 cents. So and the Louisville Bakery, the location of that was here where City Hall sits now, is where that bakery was. So again, this is a proposal to landmark and a grant. So staff is finding that it does meet the architectural and social criteria for landmarking and is recommending approval of that. The grant request includes work that was all identified in the historic structure assessment. It includes foundation work, work on the sewer, rebuilding some of the structure that needs some work for it to be maintained well. And this is a matching grant. It's below the $40,000 maximum that could be requested, so it is to maintain the property. The Historic Preservation Commission did review this in September of this year. They're recommending approval of both the grant and the landmarking, and staff is recommending approval as well. Gary Dunlap, the owner, is here this evening as well if you have any questions for him, or I don't know if Gary wants to speak.
He's welcome to make comments.
I'll just quickly. Thanks for considering this. I'm Gary Dunlap, and I have lived at this location since 1994. I'm also a member of the Historic Preservation Commission, which sounds like asking for this to be landmarked, and serving on the commission is a conflict of interest. But I would say that it's kind of a confluence of interest, that in both cases, I like the Old Town and houses being preserved in it. And without approaching this and the historic structural assessment being done, the house was in danger of caving in some ways. There were some beams and masonry that had collapsed in the cellar. And so it was very timely. So thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. So we'll go to public comment. Is anybody in the chambers who'd like to make public comment on this? Seeing none. Anybody on Zoom? Seeing none, we'll bring about council questions and discussion. Councilor Dickinson.
I think this is great. I'm just a little surprised by the grant amount. I would imagine there's a considerable amount of foundation work to do. You obviously have been through the process and you feel comfortable that you have, the work that you need to do to get your house stabilized and preserved for another 100 years. Just want to make, because it's pretty, honestly, in this day and age, it's pretty rare for anyone to request less than the maximum. It's like, well, I got to spend 100. Can I at least get 40? So it sounds like you're getting a matching grant at the 16,000, and you price this out, and that's what is needed. But otherwise, I think this is fantastic. It's an awesome building. Happens to be a block away from my house, and I see it all the time, and it's just really, really phenomenal example of something very special in our community. So excited this is going to get added to the list for sure.
Others? Councilor Fahey? Excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem Fahey?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just echo what Councilor Dickinson said. I think this is a very unique structure in Louisville and has a lot of historic character, one that I've driven by for years, and I think it's wonderful that it's going to be preserved. And I also am surprised that you're not getting the maximum amount, because I know how expensive these things can be.
Actually, this work has already been done by a local contractor, a small-scale contractor, and also a local structural engineer. And we're convinced that the brick house will continue to stand and the support in it. So yes, it's by looking closely at some of these structures, it can be done more precisely than sometimes a big builder coming in. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I just want to make a few comments. When I remember we voted on a historic preservation program. It's an incentive program. It's unique, and it's something that I'm very proud of. That something that the city of Louisville has. So this is a tremendous example of the reason why we have this particular program. Does anyone want to make motions?
Sure. Do you need 2 separate motions? Thanks. So I move that we approve resolution number 68, series 2023, a resolution approving a landmark designation for historical residential property located at 741 Lincoln Avenue, the Ostrander House.
Second.
Discussion? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lay?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fahey?
Yes.
Councilmember Hefner?
Yes.
Councilmember Kern?
Yes.
Mayor Maloney?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickinson?
Yes.
We have a motion on number 69.
Okay. I move to approve resolution number 69, series 2023, a resolution approving a preservation and restoration grant for the Ostrander House at 741 Lincoln Avenue.
Second.
Discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Kern?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickinson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hefner?
Yes.
Mayor Maloney?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fahey?
Yes.
Councilmember Lay?
Yes.
Thank you. Both of those pass unanimously. Congratulations. Next up is item B, adoption of the 2024 budget. And I do want to make a note here. The staff has worked on this for many, many months. And we've looked at budgets that really span over 5 or 6 years. What we're approving tonight is just the 2024 budget. So out years and projections, those will have to be reviewed because that is our charter. It looks at it year by year. But with that, does the city manager have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. There may be things that you don't miss about serving as mayor. I think the budget process is one that you may actually miss. I know this has been one of your passions, and I just wanted to call that out. I really appreciate the history you bring and the hard questions that you ask. Really appreciate all of council challenging us, asking the hard questions. I think council's done a good job of really making sure this is a solid budget. Next year, we'll roll up our sleeves even further as we work on 2025. Couple items that I would touch on. Well, first of all, I want to thank you, all the directors, all of their teams, our staff for the work that they've done and contributing to our finance team and all the new finance members that Riders brought on board. It's been fun watching them move through this process and get to this point. As noted, we've had a number of hearings already. This is essentially the finish line that I think we're at. If council's ready, if you have more, I mean, we can always, do a little more work if you want, but that's your call. But I'm happy to bring this budget for your consideration of adoption tonight. Two things that came up that I saw today on your email strings. One, some question about property taxes and where those projections are at. As noted, this is technically a one-year budget, and then we have 5-year projections in there as relates to property tax revenues, sales tax revenues, expenditures, all these things. The 2024 property tax mill levy does include, I should say, a temporary tax credit. And then as we look out in future years, there's a lot of moving parts right now with different initiatives at the state level that may dramatically change the way property taxes work in Colorado. So I feel like we have a pretty conservative look out into the future, but we're going to have a lot of math to do as we approach the end of this year and early next year. The other big thing, tomorrow is Election Day, and your open space and parks sales and use tax is up for consideration by the voters. The budget as presented right now, we've talked about this, but I think it's really important to note again, in Parks and Open Space Fund, and that one fund today, it's what we're referring to as a status quo budget, which isn't real because it's not that scenario. It's either going to be the tax fails, the tax question fails, and then we've got a big bucket to figure out in terms of those expenditures and how we move forward. We have ideas on that. Or the tax question passes, and then we'll be taking that one fund and splitting it into 2 funds, pulling apart all those different expenditures, and that will be a public process. It's a budget amendment, which goes through the same process as the normal budget. We may not have as many hearings and meetings, but it's definitely a public process, and we'll be out there working hard in the first quarter, I would say, of next year to get through all that. So with that, I will toss it over to our finance director, Bailey, to see if you have anything else to add.
Thank you, City Manager. Just a few comments on the budget. Took us a while to get here, so I've got some thank yous to go through this evening. Tonight, staff is presenting for adoption the citywide 2024 budget. I would like to thank my finance department, who worked tirelessly on developing this important guiding document, Kim Baker, Julie Glazer, Diane Krieger, and Mahyar Mansourabadi. I would also like to thank department directors and their staff, our HR department, who assisted with our salary projections. I would like to personally thank Andy Squires in IT, who helped me quickly learn our ERP system, which is used heavily throughout this process. And of course, the city manager and his staff, who assisted us in navigating and balancing council and city priorities when tough decisions need to be made. Lastly, I'd like to thank your city council for your significant contributions, time, and feedback throughout this process. The final budget being presented tonight is structurally balanced and in compliance with the city's reserve policies. It includes roughly 16% less mills to help offset the impact of assessed values within city jurisdiction. Through adoption of this budget, your council continues to prioritize sustainability and decarbonization with nearly $2 million budgeted in next year's budget. It demonstrates your commitment to maintaining our city road infrastructure and pavement booster program. It prioritizes resiliency and mitigation with 2 newly added positions and enhanced mitigation efforts. It leverages IT best practices by expanding our Office 365 licenses, enhancing IT security, and bolstering our hardware replacement program. It restores the police department's mental health co-responder program, and it envisions our future by funding the comprehensive plan, land code rewrite, and rec, open space, parks, and trails master plan. As my boss said, there's still some work to be done. Finance will return to council later this year to certify our final mills once exact valuations are known and given to us from Boulder County Assessor. And based upon tomorrow's open space and parks measure, Finance and CMO will return in 2024 with the budget amendment. With that, I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Question from council, Councilor Dickinson.
You didn't mention it, but I assume also HH is on our radar for how that would affect us, and just to say it out loud that we're also looking at that, or if I'm wrong, that it won't affect us.
Correct.
Councilor Kern.
So unfortunately, I wasn't here soon enough to be much of a part of this, but have tried to look it over. Sorry that you're leaving so soon, Dennis. I could definitely use more of your help on this moving forward. So I wanted to just kind of publicly put out there that we can, and confirm from my knowledge moving forward, that we can make amendments to this if we need to. For example, just like you were talking about, Jeff, that if it doesn't pass, or it does pass and we have more money for parks and space, we can work on the budget. If it's determined that we need additional mitigation funding for more enhanced programs, that's an option as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you for the actual yes. I wanted to verify that for me and for all the residents right now who are kind of thinking about these things, very worried about them. Thank you for bringing up the HH too. I've been hearing that a lot as well, is how does that impact us as a community and our budget when all of these numbers are so up in the air?
Yeah, we typically go through a couple budget amendment processes on an annual basis. One in the second quarter, one in the last quarter, and then of course we'll add this open space and parks piece. So I would presume at least 3 budget amendment processes next year.
All right, let's go to public comment. Does anyone in the chambers want to make public comment on the budget presentation? Seeing none. Anybody on Zoom? All right, brings it back to council. Council discussions, motions. Councilor Lay.
Make a comment before we make the motion. Thank you to the staff for a heavy lift on this, because I know it was at times really, really difficult. And it was difficult for you, Director, because you were new, and it's a brand new set of constraints. I suspect Tabor is now punched into your brain forever, and all the other kinds of issues that have come up in the course of budgeting. So thank you for all your work and all of the directors, because I think that's another piece of it that the mayor mentioned that we really sometimes take for granted, is that this is a huge collective. It's like a work in progress for a long time, trying to bring all of that together. So to everyone, thank you. And thanks for the fellow council members who worked pretty hard too, in all of it.
I'm going to take the opportunity as well. I want to thank the city manager, deputy city manager, director, and all of the directors. This is always a huge lift, and you're brand new. So you had to learn a lot of new things, lot of new processes. But, I think what's important to me is that we are meeting our fiscal policies. We do have a balanced budget. We didn't start off there. We never do. It's just this annual thing where you always have more expenditures than you have revenues. But I think we had excellent discussions, council. I think we all worked through things, worked through projections and so forth. And that's absolutely the way it should be, because what we come down to are what are the priorities? What do we value as a city? And I think this budget reflects that. You mentioned a number of those, Director. Some of the things that we heavily value, like sustainability. And that is something that we're investing in. Transportation, I know the other director's gone, but a lot of those things we value are in there. They are funded. I think it's also important to note that our revenues are strong. And especially on the sales tax side, which still amazes me, and I know that Councilor Dickinson and I have wrestled with that for 4 years. I've been more conservative than him, but he's usually been right. But I don't know if that's sustainable forever. But I think the city is in really good fiscal shape, and I think this budget reflects that. So, would anyone like to make a motion? Mayor Pro Tem Fahey?
I will move to approve Resolution Number 70, Series 2023, a resolution summarizing expenditures and revenues for each fund and adopting a budget for the City of Louisville, Colorado for the calendar year beginning on the first day of January 2024 and ending on the last day of December 2024.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. A roll call vote, please.
Mayor Maloney?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fahey?
Yes.
Councilmember Kern?
Yes.
Councilmember Hefner?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickinson?
Yes.
Councilmember Lay?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Does anyone want to make a motion on 71?
Sure. I move that we approve Resolution Number 71, Series 2023, Annual Appropriation Resolution for the City of Louisville, Colorado for the calendar year beginning January 1, 2024, and ending December 31, 2024.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hefner?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fahey?
Yes.
Councilmember Kern?
Yes.
Councilmember Lay?
Yes.
Mayor Maloney?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickinson?
Yes.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, City Manager. Next up in regular business is C, Ordinance Number 1866, Series 2023, an ordinance adopting by reference the 2023 National Electric Code. This is the first reading, and it's to set the public hearing for November the 28th, 2023. I make a motion to approve this ordinance. Is there a
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. City Attorney's report?
Nothing for me.
Really?
Nope.
We set aside an hour for you.
Right?
Thank you. The next up is council comments, committee reports, and identification of future agenda items. Councilor Hamilton.
You're not going to like that I'm going to do this, but I didn't get a chance to speak earlier and express my gratitude to the work that you do, not only for our community, but I have found in my short time on city council thus far, your mentorship to me has been invaluable. And to know that I can call you and ask a question, and no question is a stupid question, and you will patiently walk me through it. And I find you are a phenomenal source of grounding, because this is not an easy job. And you can just calm the room and ground us all to the work that we're doing. So thank you for that. And your leadership impacts me not only up here, but how I show up in my job and other aspects of my life. And for that, I'm grateful. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Councilor Kern.
That was actually very nice and well said. Sorry, I can't top that. I was actually going to go to an agenda item for the future agenda. Is that okay? Sorry. Less fun, less sentimental. I'd like to offer a suggestion that we move the discussion of home hardening and WUI code from a moderate priority in the 2024 work plan to a high priority, and that we do it sooner rather than later. If it could be something that we discuss, even at least talking about it, getting city staff's knowledge and input on this, that would be great. I know that Director Zaccaro is working on it in other areas for the state. His input would be invaluable for us moving forward as a community and as a city to try and help homes and the community be safer in future wildfires.
City Manager, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I think, I guess my question would be, with the election tomorrow, you'll have a new mayor for certain, and you may have one more new council member. I almost feel like that might be a conversation for that next council to have about, do you want to revisit the entire work plan, or is it just adding this one particular item? You know, it's your call. We'll go wherever you'd like us to go. But I think that there might be interest in revisiting that, if not a full revisit, at least a here's where this council landed, kind of a handoff, running through what all those agenda items, the work plan items are. So there might be some value in a special meeting to or study session to do that. But again, your call.
So, Deputy City Manager, off the top of your head, do you remember how many meetings we set aside for that?
I wish I did, Mayor. I don't, but I do know we have set some meetings aside. If this council or the new council is interested in looking at it, we could certainly make sure to set one up early in the new council's term to work through this.
Other thoughts? Councilor Lay?
Not on that. But thank you. I'm going to pile on.
Well, you can pile on later, but we have an issue on the table right now.
Oh.
And so there's been a request by one counselor to move the WUI discussion earlier. So, and as staff has said, it could be moved to early in the year. Councilor Dickinson?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, the process of work planning is difficult, right? So several meetings to try to hone in on what our priorities are and what we want to do. And it's awkward because you do it and you set it up for the next council. And so having that come in 2019, it's like, okay, well, what are we working on? In that first year, you're kind of like, okay, well, these are the things we're working on. And in some ways, I think that's good. Like we need to keep the ball running. And in other ways, you know, I think it is valuable for, you know, the new council. Just this is an impossibility, but imagine 7 new council members shouldn't be doing necessarily what the last 7 people wanted to do. So we don't have that situation, but I think it's reasonable that we reconsider, you know, in some way, you know, if things, without reconsidering the entirety of our work plan, if some tweaks didn't happen or if there's some suggestions, I think that's worthwhile for us to have that conversation before the new year. I wouldn't want to, at this moment of a meeting, change our work plan that took months to put that in place. I wouldn't change it tonight, but I would definitely think that having a longer conversation about tweaking it would be appropriate.
Councilor Lay?
I'm not going to pile on right now.
Good.
I'm going to do what the mayor says. I think I agree with Councilmember Dixon. I think this is an important issue, and I think also each council is different. I think about this every single time we add people, it changes. I've gotten used to saying, oh, it's a different council, you know? And I think it may change. And I agree with Councilmember Dickinson, it's not the right time to do it right now, and that's not what you're asking. But because I think it's important for everybody to take a look at what we've already done, which of course is linked with the budget, and decide if we want to make changes, add, subtract, change, whatnot. So I agree with that. I think that's only appropriate.
Mayor Pro Tem Fahey.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to add on to this that the council will be changing, but the priorities of the residents will not. And so making this a priority of our residents, I think, is an important step to take. And so I would be happy moving it up or emphasizing, making it a higher priority or moving it up in the timeline, either one or both.
City Manager, did you have a comment?
We were just comparing notes over here. I'm looking at the advance agenda, looking for a slot where we might fit that conversation in. I think we've got a couple places where the three of us could talk about that. And then Sam has got your work plan up, which does have that as a medium priority, but there's really no meetings at this point scheduled to discuss that. So that medium stuff, if you remember, is kind of like, if we can get there, we will, but it's not this is a high priority. So I think the question would be moving it up to a high priority. And so it seems to me like we'll figure out a date to have a follow-up conversation with the new council. And I agree, Councilmember Lay, one person creates a whole new group dynamic, right? So having at least an update conversation and a place for council to have that conversation, probably January, early February, we can find some time.
So that would, the first one would be a direction discussion.
Yep.
Is there a way or a proper method to bring this particular topic to Councilmember Fahey's point, Mayor Pro Tem, my apologies, Fahey's point? This is a real big priority in our community to its residents. I'm here speaking on their behalf, letting all of us know that this is something that is important to the residents of Louisville. And there are lots of new buildings going in, new construction, residential construction going in that is not from the residents who already lived here. It's their homes. These are, speculation builders that are building new homes in neighborhoods. They are not currently taking WUI measures in Louisville, although they are in Superior where required. And residents are very concerned that this is not a priority for builders. We're already challenged building back their own homes with this. I think asking builders who are in this for a profit to take our entire community into consideration with advancing some measures of home hardening, and they can be very inexpensive measures, is not a lot to ask. If this is something that we could implement and potentially opt out the residents who were impacted by the Marshall fire, I think we could move quickly on something, and I think that the residents would really like to see this prior to February, if that's possible.
I'm
Preferably
going
this year.
to interrupt just briefly and mention this is not on the agenda tonight, so
Right.
only thing you can discuss is
Putting it on the agenda.
agending it, so.
Right. Did you have further comment, City Manager?
Yes, if council wanted to add this to a future agenda, regardless of the work plan conversation, that would be an option you could talk about. If you want to go that direction, I still don't know that we could really realistically get anything here before January, but at least you would have a date on a council agenda that we could target if that's the direction you'd like to take.
That sounds like our best option. So let's do that. So let's hopefully target sometime in January for the discussion direction.
Yeah, we'll figure out a date.
Okay. Any other?
We can.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Any other comments, committee reports, future agenda items? Councilor Lay.
Is it time yet?
Do I have a choice?
It's going to be hard to say goodbye to you. You've made a very big impression on all of us for a long time. With obviously, your quantitative skills, but that's just a very small part. Councilmember Hamilton just talked about your mentorship. And I think you've mentored people who've been on council longer. Certainly that's true for me. I haven't been on much longer than you, but just a little, and absolutely mentored me plenty, and mentored a lot of others on council. Some might use the term schooled, but I won't. I think it was done with a great deal of grace and wisdom, and we're going to miss you more than maybe we know right now. And I just speak for myself, but I think Councilmember Hamilton hit it, that you're always available to bounce ideas off of and provide counterpoint at times and support at others, and help to, I think, work with staff. I have been very impressed just with the example that you've set for all of us. You set the bar pretty high for anybody who's going to do this job in the future, not just now, but far into it. And I think the other thing that I would say is you've had a hard job in being kind of a transitional person between somebody who was leading council and elected, and somebody who was appointed essentially or elected by the rest of us a year ago. And you've set a tone throughout that time, which is respectful, and I think makes me happy to come to these meetings. And I think you have instilled in the rest of us a kind of problem-solving ethic that I just really appreciate, because that doesn't come inevitably. It's just not inevitable. It takes leadership. So thank you for your leadership. And I'm not going to miss. You know I wasn't going to stop there. I'm not going to miss, though, the discussions about fly fishing, which I still don't get any better than I did before. But I hope you get a chance to do fly fishing a lot. I hope you get a chance to spend a lot of time with the grandkids. I know you will, because you prioritize that. That's one of the things that I really appreciate also, is you have made it clear that we are policymakers. We are part-time at what we do. And that's not a knock. That doesn't, you spent a huge amount of time on your work. But I think it's important to let staff do what staff does and enable them, and enable each of us to be, to bring ourselves here. So thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem Fahey.
Thank you. I'm just
You guys
going
are choking me up.
I'm just going to add to all of this and say I agree with everything that everyone has said about you. You're knowledgeable. You're also wise, and you're respectful. So you know what should be done, what could be done, and you get us to the same point where something actually does get done. And it's always done in a very kind and respectful way, and we all come away with better than we were before you stepped up. So I thank you also. You've been a great inspiration to me, to everyone who's been speaking, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
You guys. This is really about public service. And for me, whatever skills I have, whatever knowledge I have, is something that as a citizen of Louisville, I feel, I had an obligation to step up. And, for that, I am grateful. And the Citizens Award 3 well, most of them agreed. So I appreciate that, and you know, the support, and I think this has been a great year. I really appreciate the new members of council, and you know, I feel like the conversations have gotten better. I think we've all gotten better at this because we've been listening, and really the debate is right here. The debate is not us to there, but the debate is here about what is the right policy. And and as Councilor Lay said, I think it's important that we recognize the role we play here, but it's not who we are. It's a role we play for our community for a certain period of time. And I thank you for your support, and I thank you for your comments, and I'm choked up. Thank you very much. All right, we will move on to adjournment. You made me cry. You made me cry.
This isn't the end of our relationship, honestly, so.
Congratulations.